Come on in, pull up a chair, and take a load off, because today I'll be reviewing and paging through Dungeons & Dragons Spelljammer Adventures in Space from Wizards of the Coast. Should you and your friends put on some Bob Marley and prepare to go jamming across the Astral Sea? Or would you be better served putting as much space as possible between yourself and this new D&D release? Well, you're going to find out right after this. Howdy, 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 gang. Welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. As mentioned in the open, today I'll be reviewing and paging through Dungeons & Dragons Spelljammer Adventures in Space from Wizards of the Coast. This slipcase set contains 3 64-page hardcovers as well as a Dungeon Master's screen. It is making its way into stores today, and it does carry an MSRP of $64.99. Also, stay tuned because I'm going to reveal the winner to my copy of the alternate art edition of the slipcase set. So that'll be coming up in just a bit. So let's swing on over to the other camera, because here I've got the first book, The Astral Adventurer's Guide. Few things that I do want to mention before we dive on in. First off, the fine folks over at Wizards of the Coast were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. These days, it's very important that you know that. Also, I'll be staying picture-in-picture up here. So as we take a peek through the 3 books, I'll be cutting off a little bit of the upper left portion of the books themselves. We're not going to look at each and every page, but I do want to give you a good feel for what you're going to find in these 3 volumes, as well as the Dungeon Master's screen. I'll give you a peek at that as well. Should point out that I have done first looks and page throughs for all 3 of these books, the Astral Adventurer's Guide, as well as Boo's Astral Menagerie. I took a peek at on the live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch. And then on Thursday, I uploaded a standalone video where I took a peek at the new adventure book, Light of Xaryxis, or however it's pronounced. So I took a peek at that as well. So we're not going to take as deep a dive into each of these books as I did in those videos, but I do want to talk about what I like about the slipcase set, what I dislike about some of the things that are included, as well as a couple of things that really left me scratching my head, to be very, very honest. I'm going to talk about if this is worth picking up, and if so, who's probably going to get the most use out of it. All right, so let's dive on in. So first off, the Astral Adventurer's Guide has quite a bit of player-facing info. There is some Dungeon Master-facing info as well. In fact, the last portion of the book, there's a couple of head scratchers. I'll talk about that. But first off, we're going to jump in. We're going to get an explanation of what is wild space, what is the astral sea, what is the astral plane, and discussing traveling across these vast expanses of outer space, or I guess we'll say wild space. So we get some information about different campaigns. We get some character options. We've got 2 new backgrounds. We've got the Astral Drifter and we've got the Wild Spacer. Those come with some tweaks as well. And we have 6 new player races that can be utilized. And we've got the Astral Elf, the Auto Gnome, the Gif, which made their first appearance in the original Spelljammer. As far as I know, I should point out, I have absolutely no affiliation whatsoever with Spelljammer. Back in the day, my friends and I had already left playing D&D when Spelljammer and Planescape and Dark Sun all hit. So, I mean, I had an inkling about Spelljammer and what it was about, but we had already moved on to Call of Cthulhu, for example, is what I was running. Stormbringer, Top Secret, all these various different games. We no longer were immersed in advanced Dungeons and Dragons. We just had moved on. I like the plasmoids a lot. They remind me of Gloop and Gleep from the Herculoids. I know that's kind of a blast from the past. And I swear, it is Gloop and Gleep as far as their names. So I definitely like the plasmoids. I know a lot of people are really looking forward to the Thrycreen, the insectoid race who actually communicates telepathically. So we've got those. Then we get into a section about astral adventuring and discussing some of the rules involved in spelljamming. Spelljamming is effectively piloting these spacefaring galleons and ships. You do have to be a magic user of some sort to be able to be a spelljammer. So we have a discussion about the spelljammer helms, which are, of course, the piloting chairs that are utilized that come in all different shapes and sizes. We've got a discussion of how gravity works, as well as air envelopes. One thing I will point out with these rules, for one, they're not very in-depth. And in fact, I'll talk about the combat rules, which I find to be very, very disappointing. But the rules are not very, very in-depth, and they kind of don't make a lot of sense in some ways. So as an example, a spelljamming ship is supposed to be able to travel 100 million miles in 24 hours. That's a long way, considering you figure from the Earth to the moon is 250,000 miles. So a spelljamming ship can travel 400 times the distance between the Earth and the moon in 24 hours. Personally, I think that's a bit much, personally. Plus, I would think it'd be very difficult for you to have encounters in space if you were moving that fast. Of course, just the actual speed of a space module going to the moon is pretty damn fast as well, but still. Something else that I thought didn't make a ton of sense is the discussion of air envelopes. And I completely understand you can't breathe in space, so you have to have these pockets of air that are available to you, including on your spelljamming ship. But the discussion is that the air turns foul after about 120 days. That seems like an awful lot of air available to the player characters and the NPCs. Personally, I would think replenishing your air supply could, really lead to some really interesting encounters and kick off adventures and things like that. But if you can go months without having to worry about it, I don't know. So we have discussion about traveling between various different systems on the astral plane. And then we get into combat. And to be honest, I think Wizards of the Coast really dropped the ball with the combat rules. This is it. These are your combat rules. You're really, with the artwork, take the artwork out, you're looking at a little more than a page, and pretty lackluster. As far as the ships that are presented in this book, there are no broadsides. There are no broadside weapons. All weapons either fire fore or aft. That's it. There's only one ship that actually has any sort of cannon. The rest fire like rocks and ballistas. And it's like, okay. Boarding actions. Boarding just takes place. There's no rules for repelling boarders at all. I would certainly recommend that you watch Master and Commander if you want to get a good feel for some really great action that can take place between two naval ships during the Age of Sail going at it, which I think would be fantastic in Spelljammer. Also, check out the old classic film Captain Blood, which has some pretty cool scenes of pirates boarding ships. So, like I said, this is a real head scratcher because I know a lot of people are really looking forward to the naval rules, the naval combat, or I guess we'll say naval-ish combat rules. In fact, they've commented on other videos, and unfortunately, this is it. There's actually more page space devoted to crashing, not ramming, but crashing, than there is to actual combat. Something else that didn't make a whole lot of sense is the discussion that a Spelljammer can position their ship so all weapons can fire at the enemy. Well, if all you have are fore and aft weapons, that's impossible to do. And there's absolutely no mechanics for turning your ship so your weapons come to bear or anything like that. Just really lackluster. So one aspect of this book is about a third of it is devoted to the various different spelljamming ships and their floor plans, their deck plans, I guess we'll say. And they're pretty cool. Strangely enough, this is the only ship that really has a cannon. It's a giant cannon. This is a gift ship. It's the Bombard, which, of course, a Bombard is a cannon. So I thought that was really odd, where the rest of these ships all have ballistas and they have mangonels, which mangonels, not McDonald's, mangonels, effectively are just rock throwers. They're like catapults almost. So I thought that was kind of bizarre. But there are some really cool ships. Honestly, what I would have liked to have seen is maybe had these deck plans shrunk down a little bit, so we had more than just a little stat block and 3 or 4 paragraphs about each of the ships. But this aspect here, this is going to be one of the big selling points of Spelljammer, is to get your hands on the various different spell jamming ships. There's the Space Galleon. As for the adventure itself, you're kind of open to what spell jamming ship you can utilize. I would personally probably go with the Space Galleon, just because, it looks like an Age of Sail ship. So last portion of this is going to be the Rock of Brawl, which is a new locale. And this comes into play in the adventure book as well. It's not a big location in the adventure, but part of the adventure will take place on this. And this is another kind of couple of things were head scratchers to me. So this is supposed to be on an asteroid, and it is a city. There's a palace. There's a lake. And according to this, it's 1 mile in length and 1/2 mile wide. Really? That certainly doesn't look like that's the case. And then in the adventure book, it talks about, I think the word used is massive city. Well, 1 mile by 1/2 mile is not massive. Also, there's some discussion about the city politics and the movers and shakers in here that really should not be available to the players. There are a few things that are pointed out that, this is what's really going on. And it's kind of like, you do know a lot of players are going to be reading this book. So I thought that was a little bit strange. I would have thought that this section would have been better served just being added onto the adventure book itself, as opposed to including this in the Astral Adventurers Guide. All in all, not too bad. Once again, like I said, I really think Wizards of the Coast dropped the ball big time by not fleshing out some cool boarding action rules and astral ship combat rules. Just really, really lackluster with that. But some other cool options, and the spell jamming ships are cool as well. So now let's take a look at Boo's Astral Menagerie. And with this, we're going to have a bestiary that's going to show a collection of a variety of space-faring creatures. So we're not going to take a look at each and every one, but I personally do like this quite a bit. Some of the races, like, okay, so we've got the Astral Elves. Yeah, they're elves. They're spacefaring elves. They tend to be more apt towards evil than good for the most part. But they're still elves. So I love the Chwinga. These have appeared previously in other adventure books. I just find them to be very cool little elemental spirits that can provide you with kind of a little blessing, kind of a special bonus for you. We've got the Eyemonger. Eyemonger looks like an asteroid, just looks like a big rock. We've got the GIF. And a lot of people are excited about the GIF. So we have a few different types of GIF. We've got the Shipmate, the Warlord. We got the Trooper. We got the Hedozi, which are kind of simian creatures, but they have membranes that they can use to glide. They tend to be in the adventure quite a lot as ship crews. We've got lunar dragons. We also have solar dragons. So we've got that as well. We've got the murder comets. I know there were a few people who were really looking forward to the murder comets. As I mentioned before, I really like the plasmoids. It's just something about them. It's like I said when we were looking at the other book, Gloop and Gleep. If I could do their little voices, I would, but I really can't. Then we have the Rhaegar. There's our solar dragons. The artwork throughout is pretty solid. Some of the artwork throughout the bestiary and the adventure have a bit of a watercolor vibe to them. So not this image in particular, but we've got space clowns. So some of these are kind of odd, kind of silly. We have the vampirates as well, who actually play a pretty big role in the adventure itself. We have the space guppy. Of course, we've got our space hamsters, and we've got our miniature giant space hamsters. So all in all, some pretty interesting, there's the vampirates. Some pretty interesting creatures and new races available as well in the bestiary. I like this quite a bit. I think most dungeon masters will get some good usage out of it. Not every one of the creatures is a hit. Plus, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more information about the tactics that some of these creatures or races might utilize. We're seeing less and less of that in a lot of the monster manuals and the stat blocks for monsters and that lately. So I wish we would see a little more information about how dungeon masters can utilize these creatures, just as opposed to, well, this is an ability, this is an ability, this is an ability. This is what these can do. So there is that. So pretty good book. I like this quite a bit. And then finally, we're going to have the Light of Xaryxis. At least that's how I'm pronouncing it. This is the adventure. It is a rollicking space adventure for the world's greatest role-playing game. And when I see a word like rollicking, that's usually a red flag, because when something is advertised as being rollicking or hysterical, it's usually not. So this adventure is, I guess the one word I would use to sum it up is it's fine. There's some cool stuff going on in the adventure. And of course, I do have to point out, this is an adventure book. There's probably going to be some slight spoilers here. I'm going to stay away from major spoilers, but even just showing you some of the pages, there's going to be some spoilers. So if you are a player hoping that your dungeon master is going to run this, jump ahead to the end of the video where I give my review score. Anyway, there's some cool stuff going on with this, but the problem I have is it's a lot of just combat and not a lot of options for the players to circumvent that or avoid the combat. There are some cool NPCs. There are some cool set pieces to the adventure, but there's just far too much. Okay, now this happens and these things attack. Or this spell jamming ship shows up and the boarders jump on board and you have a battle. Okay, you're trying to get this guy on your side. Okay, well, you have to fight in his arena. So on some of the more recent adventures, I've talked about how I'm not a real big fan of just rolling dice to roll dice, where it's kind of like, oh, well, your players can roll this challenge, and if they succeed, they get this piece of information. But if they don't succeed, they'll get that piece of information through some other avenue later on. We're not seeing a ton of that in this. The only problem is we're not seeing a ton of non-combat social interaction or social challenges and things along those lines. Like I said, we've got some cool NPCs. There are a few chapters here that I thought were very interesting that I believe I would have a lot of fun running. Only problem is that a lot of it is just swept away with yet another combat taking place. Something else that happens far too often in this adventure as well is you just get a couple of paragraphs saying, okay, so this creature and these minions show up and, okay, fight. And that's it. That's all you get. There's no setup whatsoever. There's no discussion of what kind of tactics these enemies might use. Nothing. It's just like, okay, so here's some bolded creatures and some bolded minions, and now you're going to battle it out. This adventure is inspired by the old 80s film Flash Gordon, and you can tell right away there are a lot of points to this where it's like, oh, yep, that's right from it. What I would also recommend is you can go on YouTube and the old Buster Crab Flash Gordon serials from like the 1930s are available. Check those out. There was also the Flash Gordon cartoon that was around in the 80s as well. That was pretty good. You can give that a peek also to get a real good feel for how you might want to run this. To be very honest with you, this doesn't really have a Spelljammer feel to me. Sure, there's points where you're traveling around and you're traveling through space, but to be honest, you could be traveling in a ship on any campaign world, and it's pretty much effectively the same. I do want to mention that the final solution, the final challenge, the final decision that the player characters have to make is very, very interesting and does make up for a lot of what I feel are missteps in the adventure. I really do like the fact that it's not all cut and dried at the end. The player characters are going to have a difficult decision to make. And to be honest, the fate of their home world actually lies in the balance. So, but it's still not an automatic, oh yeah, we're going to do this. So I like that fact about this adventure as well. This is broken up into 12 chapters. Each of these chapters are expected to be run in about a 4-hour block. So you should be able to bang this out, depending on how long your sessions are. Probably 10 to 12 sessions. I tend to run my role-playing games longer, so I would figure I could probably knock this out with my group in about 7 or 8. So there you go. This is the finale. I'm going to just skip to the end. So 64 pages. The adventure is fine. It's okay. Once again, I don't think it's fantastic. Far too much just combat as opposed to having player options of avoiding combat situations. It's just this shows up or this is here, and there isn't even opportunities to parlay. It's just, oh, there you go. They attack. Not too keen on that. I'm not a big fan of that. All right. So those are the 3 books. And let me show you real quickly the Dungeon Master screen. So it is a landscape. I like the artwork on it. I thought the artwork's pretty cool. So there you have the artwork. And then, of course, we've got the D&D ampersand. And, of course, the Dungeon Master screen is aimed at Spelljammer. So there you have it. All right. So let's swing on over to the other camera. So before I share my final thoughts and a review score, let me reveal who the winner is. Yes. There is one person going to win this slipcase set with the alternate art edition. I made it super easy for you to get involved and get into the running. All you had to do is be a subscriber to the channel, and you had to comment on each of the 3 videos where I shared first looks at the 3 volumes that are in Spelljammer, Adventures in Space. And the comments just had to all be unique. Couldn't just be like, I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to this. So I asked pretty much, what were you looking forward to in each of the books? And that's how you got into the running. So the winner is Lion on the Beach, or it may be Leon on the Beach. I'm not sure because it's Lyon. So do me a favor. Send an email to Jeff McAleer at thegaminggang.com. Please use your Gmail account that's affiliated with your YouTube account. And let me know where I'm going to be sending the slipcase set. And congratulations. And thank you very much to everyone who took part in the contest as well. All right. So what do I think of Spelljammer Adventures in Space? I think it's okay. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's phenomenal. I do like Boo's Astral Menagerie. I think that out of the 3 books, it's my favorite. I think you could get a good amount of use through most of those different entries for the different creatures and races and so forth. Some of them I think are silly, but for the most part, pretty cool. The adventure itself, one of the aspects that I have found recently in the past few years with 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons is it just seems to be a lot of people going through the motions. It's just how it kind of comes across to me. The sense of wonder, the sense of joy, the sense of excitement that I find in other role-playing game systems seem to be missing with 5e. And I don't know if it's because there's only a handful of people who are kept on board at Wizards of the Coast who, work on D&D 24/7 or at least, 40 hours a week. Or if it's just the powers that be at Hasbro or what. I don't know what it is, but there just doesn't seem to be that joy. It just seems like designers kind of going through the motion. This isn't terrible by any stretch of the imagination. There's some good stuff inside. There's cool stuff in the Astral Adventurers Guide. There are cool set pieces and NPCs and encounters in the adventure book as well. But it just doesn't come together as something where it's like, oh, you have got to buy this. You have got to get this. And unfortunately, that's something I can say for just about every D&D release over the past couple of years. Some have been better than others, but none of them, outside the Wild Beyond the Witchlight, do I think are must-haves. That said, something else I'm a little concerned about is if we take a look at what Wizards of the Coast has done with other releases for D&D, say Ravenloft as an example, I don't think we're going to see anything else for this. I think we're going to see Spelljammer. That's it. And Wizards of the Coast is just going to leave it to third-party creators and people over on DM's Guild to flesh out more content for Spelljammer. It's just a gut feeling I get. I don't have any inside dope or anything like that. But I think Spelljammer is just going to be another one and done setting from Wizards of the Coast. Because for one, you figure they got to start focusing on this new edition or new edition, wink, wink, of D&D, because they plan on releasing that in 2024. So who knows? I don't know. Overall, if you are a big fan of Spelljammer from back in the day, I think you might find yourself to be a little disappointed with this release. If you are new to Spelljammer, like I pretty much am, I think you might actually like this. There's some very usable content within this slipcase set. Speaking of slipcase set, I think it's overkill. I got to be honest, I think they easily could have just put this in one hardcover book and charged the usual $49.99, $54.99, what have you, made it about 200 pages and left it at that. The production quality of these books is very nice, though. And if you have seen any of the first look page through videos that I did, the paper stock is a bit thicker than we're used to seeing in the D&D books. So that's a bonus as well. All in all, on a scale of 0 to 10, I give Dungeons & Dragons Spelljammer Adventures in Space a 7 out of 10. I think it's all right. I think some people are going to enjoy it. I think other people are going to be rather disappointed. And all in all, I thought it's okay. I think it's worth picking up depending on how you feel about Spelljammer. If Spelljammer is neither here nor there for you, I don't really see much use for you grabbing it. If you are really intrigued by Spelljammer, then yes, you might want to pick this up. All right, that is it for this time out. Of course, if you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, ding that bell. It'll not only let you know when I upload videos such as this review, it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. Central, right here on YouTube. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more that you won't find here on the YouTube channel. All right, thank you very much for taking time out to check out this review. And here's hoping each and every one of you gets to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang. Oh, hey, you're still here. Well, if that's the case, by all means, subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel by clicking right here. Check out the latest episode of the Gaming Gang Dispatch, or find out what YouTube recommends you check out from the channel. And of course, once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thanks for watching.